Hello and welcome back to the Junior Nationals at Broomstones Curling Club in Wayland, Massachusetts. We are here for Draw 14, and we are covering the Minnesota showdown between Meyers and Wright. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our gold sponsors, Dunkin' Donuts of Lexington, Whole Foods of Wayland, and Brooms Up Curling Supplies. I'm Alex Leichter, and I'm here joined by Graylin Cousins.
Thank you, Alex. Glad to be here.
So we got started a little bit late, but as I mentioned, this is Minnesota 1 versus Minnesota 2, Meyers versus Wright. Meyers is throwing the red stones, and Wright is throwing the yellow stones. After the last shot draw in the practices, Wright earned hammer. So it looks like with their first stone, Wright decided to put up a corner guard to play a little bit more aggressive, and Meyers is keeping the play in the house, and Wright just attempted a hit and roll behind the corner.
Yeah, it's interesting, Alex. I've been timing some games also, and it's pretty clear right away what people have in mind strategy-wise, and everybody goes through the same process of figuring out how to play against another team, and a lot of the teams are going with an aggressive game right off the bat, just like Tony Wright did here by ignoring the rock in the house and putting up the corner guard.
Yeah, often you see teams start with a couple ends of really conservative play, but I agree. We've seen a lot of aggressive play.
And I think what's happening here is the ice is so good. The USCA guys are here. They've done the ice. They worked the compressor. He's got his formula for ice surface temperature and pebble and temperature of pebble, and the fact that the rocks are aggressive. So the ice is ready to go in the first end, and there's really no reason not to play an aggressive end unless you've just decided that that's how you want to tackle things. We had an earlier game today that nobody scored until the fifth end.
So Meyers made a hit and stick and rolled back to the center, and Team Wright is trying to hit again, and they will roll out. So now it's up to Meyers if he would like to peel the guard, and he will peel the guard. This is Trevor Host throwing for Team Meyers. Perfectly executed peel there by Trevor, and Wright will put it right back.
Notice, Alex, that they're coming inside out on the peels. And again, it's always interesting to know how people play their peels. The traditional peel is outside in, but some people are more comfortable with that inside out.
So far this week, I've seen a mix of inside out, outside in. Even on just nose hits, I've seen a pretty good mix. And the Wright team puts the corner guard back up, and Meyers will go for the peel again, this time coming outside in. It looks like there is a missing stone, so we have a little bit of a delay. Kyle Cackle is not able to find.
Alex, it's hard to misplace a stone, particularly in the first end.
Yeah, you don't see this very often.
Yeah, it is possible that one of the other sheets swiped it, and they just they want to play them up the numbers or whatever, however they've chosen to throw them, and this will throw somebody off. I'm sure the clocks are off, and they'll figure it out.
Yep. Test for the timer right away.
Our timer for sheet 2 is Fred Leichter tonight, a family member of Alex. And it was a test for him right away on hitting that timeout button to stop the action.
So, Grayland, as you were saying, the ice has been great so far this week. There's a lot of curl, and the speed has been very consistent, about 24 and a half seconds, 25 seconds.
Yeah, it's in the 25-second range, and it seems to be holding its speed. It doesn't flatten out much. You do notice a little bit of a difference at Broomstones when the rest of the teams leave the ice. It does seem to check up a little bit, but the ice has been great. The players have been very happy with it.
Cameron Ross just looked up at us. It seems like he's a little bit confused as to why we're still waiting.
And apparently they've located the rock. And the ice officiating crew is right on top of that, and I think we're going to be resuming action shortly.
Looks like Kyle Kakala is in the hack, and he will now make his attempt at the peel. Perfectly executed, and I would guess that Tony Wright will put it right back.
Alex, let me comment about what we did to the rocks before this event. These rocks are gray Trevors with blue hone inserts. They come from Canada Curling Stone, Fred Veal. And we used his recommended rock scratching. They call it texturing. We did this about 2 weeks ago here, and we used an aggressive texturing method. So the rocks that were curling 3 feet at Broomstones are now curling 4.5, and in some cases 5 feet.
Yeah, we saw the stones were sanded right before our in-house men's bonspiel, and we saw a lot of curl during that spiel, much more than we're used to. But it seems to have sort of evened out now, and there's really nice curl.
That's right. We went from 7.5 feet of curl down to 4.5 to 5 feet.
Another nice peel by Kakala. And once again, Minnesota 2 will put the guard back. This is Will Howison with his second shot. And another well-placed... Oh, nope, I misspoke. It comes into the house. But I'm sure that Team Meyers will just get rid of it. Ethan Meyers here is throwing his first skip stone. He struggled with the flu yesterday.
Yeah, apparently he missed half the game against North Dakota. They ended up losing that game. He did come in the sixth end, but by then it was out of reach, and they just couldn't handle the other. Those guys were hot, and they gave them their first loss.
Nice shot by Ethan. Yeah, definitely a surprising result on paper, but when you don't have your skip and you're playing with 3, anything can happen. Tony Wright here will be trying to make a hit and probably a little bit of a roll.
I noticed that Tony's got his dad's delivery. Tony, son of Tim Wright and Amy, with a little bit of a toe tuck. Doesn't have that sideways action that Tim used to have. I can talk about Tim because we curled together. He was my first skip in 1977 for the Junior Nationals. Glad to see the second generation Wright family, and actually it's probably the third, maybe the fourth generation in the Wright family would be out here curling.
Tony makes a nice hit and roll, and Ethan Meyers will throw another hit. This end is, even though there was a guard early in the end, has become a very open end and looks like it's leading towards a blank. Nice shot by Ethan Meyers. And I think Tony Wright will be looking to hit this and roll out of the house for a blank. For those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with curling, if no one scores in an end, the team with hammer will retain the hammer in the next end. That is called a blank end. Nice shot by Tony Wright, and we have a blank.
Well, Tony tried to mix it up. You could see he put up corner guard after corner guard, but Meyers was going to have no part of that and apparently wanted to keep it a little more open, and we'll see what happens in this next end.
Yeah, just one rollout by the Wright team, but it was enough for the Meyers team to force the blank. So we'll check in on a couple of the sheets that have finished up their first end. Over on sheet 4, Dropkin took 2 in the first against Team Alaska, Ryan Flippo. And on that is the only end that is completed other than our feature sheet. So we will return to our feet.
Blank.
On sheet 3, we just got word that the Pedersen team blanked against Team Stubbe.
If you're wondering why they don't hop in the hack and throw the rock to start the next end, there is a new rule, WCF rule, that states 10 seconds has to be remaining on the 1 minute clock before you can throw your first rock. So you'll see a lot of people sitting in the hack waiting for the official to give them the signal that they can throw.
It's a new rule, and it's a little strange.
It is. It doesn't seem to be working well. Like I said, I've timed a few games this week, and for the first time ever, people are running out of time between ends, where the 1 minute clock stops and their game clock starts, and they haven't thrown their rock yet. We never used to see that, as people generally hop right in the hack and like to throw.
So the Meyers team ended up going through the house, and Tony Wright will take advantage of the empty house and put up a corner guard. Again, trying to force some offense.
Let me bring up a controversial topic, and that's about posting score in the first end, even if it's only one. And you'll get a different opinion on this depending on who you talk to. Some people will post that rock, will take that single point in the first end, and if you look at statistics in the U.S. over the last 25 years, it's an alarming statistic that the team that scores first, 66% of the time will win the game. So think about that. The next time you blank that first end trying to score your 2 or 3, and it's pretty true with the Canadian stats too, about being on the board first.
So Cameron Ross with his second stone puts it right on the pin, and the Wright team will try for a hit and roll behind the corner. End up with the nose hit and no roll behind the guard.
Yeah, we had a question from a viewer just came up about why we have this new 1 minute rule. The 1 minute's always been in place. The new rule is that you can't start unless 50 minutes has gone by. Apparently, last year's World, there wasn't a game where somebody hopped right in the hack with only 5 seconds off the 1 minute clock, and the other team wasn't ready. And the other team wanted to watch the rock come down the ice and complained. And based on that, the WCF said, we're not going to have that happen again. And now we're forcing everybody to wait 50 seconds before they throw. And that guarantees, or hopefully guarantees, that everybody's ready. It doesn't seem like a very good improvement to our rules of play.
So Trevor Host made the hit and stick, and the Wright team will try again to hit and roll behind the corner guard. Rolls almost under it. Probably got about a quarter berry, but not much that Ethan Meyers here has to worry about, and he will try to hit and roll over the open side. Another nice shot here by the Meyers rink.
So the statistic I mentioned earlier has already sparked some interest and some discussion. And the question just came up, does it have to do with steals also? And I'm not sure that's the case. The only stat that's run is whoever gets on the board first will win the game 66% of the time. And it doesn't say whether they took it or stole it. It's just a matter of getting on the board first.
Ooh, and a flash here by the Wright rink. And it looks like Ethan Meyers is calling for another stone in the house.
Sorry. No, not that. I was going to say Nate. No, I'm saying no.
Kyle Kakula here with the draw. Looks like it's hanging out a little bit wide, and maybe even a bit heavy. Does stop in the back four, and it looks like Tony Wright will call for the double. Will Howison here throwing his first shot. He hits and rolls, but not far enough, and is still open with no backing. Not far enough to bring that red stone into play, and Meyers can call for the roll either way. Hit and roll by Kyle Kakula probably rolls a bit too far. And Wright is deciding between a hit and roll or a freeze. So there's a question about the layout of our club here in Wayland. We have 4 sheets in sort of a barn-like ice house, and we are watching from the second floor, and there's also a room below that is still slightly elevated from the ice surface, but we do have 2 levels of viewing.
There was a basement where the locker rooms and bathrooms are, with a little bit of viewing area. The ice is above grade from the basement, but below grade on the first floor, so it's halfway in between.
So Will Howison's second shot rolls too far and is now in the side 12, second shot, and Ethan Meyers will still go for the hit. Doesn't want to risk giving up 2 here.
Clark's laughing at me back there.
Meyers' first shot is on the way. And it over curls and will roll all the way out of the house. So Wright, this now brings the blank back into play for the Wright team. It looks like they are deciding whether or not to roll behind the guard or roll to the open side.
So far this week, we've seen very few open misses on the wide side. So most of the misses on the takeouts or come-arounds are narrow. Come-arounds have a tendency to wreck the guards. Again, the rocks are very aggressive. If you start the rock a little bit, turn the rock in, you'll be guaranteed to wreck on a guard or possibly even flash your takeout. Seen quite a few flashes on the narrow side.
Yeah, from experience with these stones, they are not forgiving if you start them in at all.
And if you're used to throwing a soft handle, maybe if your ice is straighter and you're not used to putting an aggressive handle on that.
Wright's stone hits and rolls and just stays biting in the back 12, so Meyers will have to hit it.
When I say aggressive handle, I'm talking about 2.5 or more than 2.5 rotations to be an aggressive handle. If you're used to putting a single rotation on or 1.5, the rock will eventually move sideways. So people are learning that you do have to put more rotation on here to make it more predictable.
Earlier in the week, the Meyers rink had the lead sweeper using a hair broom, but it looks like they've switched to just using 2 synthetic pads. Ethan's shot is away. Hit and rolls a little bit too far. It's in the open, still in the house, but Wright will again have a hit and roll out for the blank.
You mentioned the type of broom, Alex. If you look across the sheets and you watch the games, almost 100% of the brooms are swivel type, synthetic heads, carbon fiber handles. They're light, they're maneuverable. Everybody's using the same type of broom these days.
Wright's shot for the blank is on its way. And looks like it's going to curl and roll out the other way. So I think he was trying there to hit and roll out on the outside, but plan B, rolls out on the inside. Still gets the blank. So we're going to switch over to sheet 3, the Pedersen-Stubbe game, to see the final 2 shots of the second end. Stubbe is throwing a hit and stick to lie 3 without the hammer. Nice nose hit by Stubbe, and Pedersen will have to play a shot against 3. It looks like the Michigan team, the Pedersen team, has switched from ties to bow ties.
I did hear the story about why they're wearing ties. Apparently, they have a friendly rivalry with the team they're playing. And last year, maybe in Madison, Wisconsin, they played the junior playdowns for Wisconsin, and the Stubbe team was wearing ties. So these guys decided that they liked that look and started wearing ties ever since. And they do change from bow ties to regular ties to sweater vests. So it's a very formal look.
Very classy. Definitely the best dressed team out here. And the Michigan shot hits and rolls out, and Stubbe will steal 2. So now we're gonna switch back to our feature sheet, where we are looking at an empty house. So another conservative end. With Cameron Ross's first shot, again the Meyers rink went in, and we're looking at another end full of trading hits. The Meyers team, along with the Dropkin team, has decided to go with numbers on the back of their shirts. Cameron Ross is sporting 00.
Alex, do we know the story behind that?
I think in some of the slam events in Canada, many of the teams have started using numbers, and I believe some teams in the U.S. have also started to do it. This is the first time I've seen it in juniors. One of the motivations for the Dropkin rink is, as the high performance team, they do not have they're not representing a state here, so they had a little bit of extra space on their uniforms, and numbers seem like something to add. So Ross made the draw, and Wesley Lexell made the hit and roll over the side of the house. Looks like Trevor Host will be throwing a hit and try to roll in. But he will just get about half the stone and roll out of the house.
So do we call them, for example, number 11 Kakala? Or do we say the 11 player, like they would say in NASCAR, for example? Do you know what the conventions are on that?
I'm not sure. I think it's sort of up to us as we go. I'll probably go with number 11, Kakala.
I'll go with the 11 player. I'll use the NASCAR convention. Never mind.
Up here in Massachusetts, we're a little bit far from the standard NASCAR region. So another draw by the Wright team, and Trevor Host will throw another takeout. Trevor Host is number 14, for those of you wondering. Well executed hitch, and the Wright team will throw another one. Jesse Yager here with the shot.
At some point, Alex, they'll probably want to bust it up a little bit, put a few more rocks in play, and they seem to be content with just playing this wide open game right now.
Another roll out there by the Wright team. Neither team has been quite sharp on their hits. We've seen several hit and roll outs so far.
Well, occasionally you see a low-scoring game because people don't want to put the rocks in play, but gone are the days of the 2-1 game after 10 ends. Just don't see much of that anymore.
Kyle Kakala Stone here slips right through the house, and it looks like Wright will put another one back in. So while we have a second, we'll just quickly discuss the scores on the other sheets. On sheet 1, Kramer, Team Colorado, tied up their game with North Dakota. It's now 1-1. And on sheet 3, the Stubbe rink, as we saw, took a 2, and they now lead the Michigan team 2-0. We will get you the Alaska high performance score as soon as they post it. Nice draw by Will Howison, and Kyle Kakla will now throw another hit. Well executed, and we will continue trading hits. Another hit here coming up for Will Howison.
I think next end, Alex, we'll take a look and break down some of the deliveries of these two teams. We'll talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the deliveries, and if people want to comment, the viewers, on preferences or where they see, throwing the rock and deliveries, where they see that going, we'll be glad to take questions on that.
I spent lots of time with Graylin picking apart my delivery, so I know he's quite good at it. So hit and roll out for Will Howison, and Ethan Meyers' first stone will be a draw to the 4-foot. So we were talking about this in one of the previous webcasts, that there has been a Colorado team before, but not for many years, and it's cool to see more states participating in nationals.
Colorado always had a team back in the 70s and early 80s, and they always sent a team to junior nationals. They curled out of the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. It wasn't dedicated ice, but they curled on the studio rink outside of the big rink at the Broadmoor. But they had an active club, had a great program, and they sent teams to all of the U.S. championships. When they stopped curling at the Broadmoor, then teams from Colorado stopped showing up. These didn't have enough curlers. But apparently they're working on their dedicated ice up in the Denver area right now.
Currently the team is playing on arena ice, but it would be great to see another fully dedicated curling club in the U.S. So Meyers' stone ended up in the back 8, and Tony Wright will throw a hit. Looks like we'll see another hit and roll out. So there's a question on the chat about where the winning team here goes, and as many of you know, the winning teams, men's and women's, will each represent the U.S. at the Junior World Championships. In Sochi, Russia. Meyers will throw another draw to an empty house. And if he makes it, I'm sure we'll see another hit and roll out attempt by Tony Wright. The sweepers aren't paying much attention to this, and I think it's going to go right through.
Alex, having a strong regional representation is not popular with everybody, where a lot of people like to see teams showing up from Colorado and Michigan and Illinois, and some teams that don't always send teams. It's not always the most popular thing, because if regions like that don't send teams to the nationals, then the larger, presumably stronger regions will send an extra team. So the argument, we've heard this week, is a weaker team coming from a smaller region will displace a stronger team from a stronger region, diluting the field of the nationals. So there's two ways to look at it. One of them is the regional look. It's great to see teams from all over the country, but people will argue that it may, at least short term, may dilute the field as these newer regions are gaining strength.
So I think it is, especially at the junior level, participation has to be a big focus. And I know in the men's and so just a note, we are now looking at sheet 3. In the men's and women's, we've gone away from the regions, but I think it's important in juniors to keep focusing on participation in that. If we grow the sport in juniors, that will inevitably grow the sport as we get into men's and women's.
And that's the other side of the argument, that regional representation does grow the sport. It gets more people interested in the wider area, and there's an argument that we have strong teams from those strong regions, and those teams are going to win anyway. So let's build the sport and let the weaker regions in. So there's two arguments.
So this is Pedersen's first skip stone on sheet 3. He does have hammer, and it looks like he's drawing against 3, and does sit in the back 8 foot, but it is open. So Stubbe will have a shot to hit and lie 4 going into the final stone of the end.
Let me just explain my earlier comment. The reason the smaller regions displace the larger regions is because of the fill policy, that if a region doesn't send, the team or the region with the most number of teams participating will send an extra team. So you could get the winner, the runner-up, and perhaps even the third place team out of a larger region.
So Stubbe's final stone here. Again, trying for the hit and stick. He does stick in the back 8 foot, and Pedersen will have a draw for his single. It does look like he's trying to decide between a draw to the backing or a hit. And I think he has decided on the hit. The shot's away. It looks like it's a little bit of a downweight hit. He's just trying to get rid of the stone and stick around. And he hits the outside, but does use the stone on the side of the 12 and will stick for his 1. So the score on sheet 3 is now 2-1, Wisconsin over Michigan. And we're going to switch back over to sheet 2 now. Trevor Host here throwing a hit, and it looks like it's going to get rid of the yellow, but will roll out of the house.
Alex, there's some discussion with our viewers on this whole topic of stronger regions and weaker regions, and we're not at all saying that Colorado is a weak region. In fact, when they were active in curling, they were a strong region. One of our men's national champions came from Colorado. I believe it was in the early 80s. Cooper was the skip's name. And the juniors were always very competitive. Bobby Stalker, Don Barkham used to curl out of the Colorado club. So Colorado's always been a very strong region. They just haven't participated much in the past, maybe 15 years.
Grayland, as some of you may know, played in the first junior nationals at Broomstones Curling Club in 1979.
That's right, Alex. So if you can do the math on that.
Sorry to date you.
Now, the Junior Nationals was in its infancy at that time. 1974 was the first junior, And I don't know where that was, but I know that the next one was in Wilmette, Illinois, then the old Detroit club, then Seattle, and then Broomstones hosted the Junior Nationals in 1979. Back then there were 8 teams, and it was men. There were no junior women's nationals at the time. So 8 men's teams would show up from around the country and play a round robin, and best record goes. No playoffs. And that year, the Don Barkham rink won the junior nationals at Broomstones and then went on to win the junior worlds.
Broomstones also hosted junior nationals back in 2003.
And an interesting note on that, Alex, is in 2003 we did not have a slot in the Worlds. So the winner of the 2003 Junior Nationals did not go on to Worlds, and that was Jesse Gates on the Minnesota team.
So now it looks like Meyers will go for a peel here to try to clear out 1 or 2 of these corner guards.
I'll ask an interesting trivia question, Alex. What national and world-class curler debuted at the Junior Nationals in 1979 at Broomstones Curling Club?
I think you might have to answer that one for me.
Well, let's see if the viewers can step up and... What was the name of this person? A national and world-level curler from the United States. First Junior Nationals, Broomstone 79.
So Will Howison's draw around the corner guard here looks like it's going to come a little deep. We'll see if Ethan Meyers can bring it all the way through, and he does. So the Meyers rink will get a second chance to try to peel these guards. Kyle Kackle's shot will overcurl a bit and just get the 1. So Wright will draw behind the red corner guard.
Alex, a question just came up with the viewers on, what's with these high-performance teams? Why are they here? Where do they come from? And I'll try to do my best to explain this in 20 words or less. The USCA chose 2 teams on the men's side, 2 teams on the women's side, to slightly fund, to focus some energy on, and allow them to pre-compete, where they had a competition, and the winner of that competition took the first slot into the Junior Nationals, and that was Team Dropkin on the men's side. So these are teams that the USCA has chosen as high-performance teams, and that's why they don't carry their state, or not flying their state flag on their back.
So the stone for the right team, Will Howison's stone, comes around the corner guard, but probably only a piece of it is buried. So Meyers will have a fairly straightforward inside-out hit. And Meyers' stone will go right by, giving Wright a chance to split the house and set up a strong position for his deuce.
So much for my comment about nobody missing on the wide side. One of our viewers made another comment about the regional discussion that we've had, which strengthens my comment that the teams from these regions were not weak teams. Our point earlier was that we're not seeing any participation from those regions, and as they rebuild, we may see weaker teams rather than stronger teams. The Rosa team out of Nebraska, very strong. Junior nationals, junior worlds, men's nationals. So there were plenty of good curlers in these regions. We're just not seeing any participation from those regions now.
Wright's draw here looks a little bit heavy, but will stop in the back 8 foot.
Question just came up about the first junior nationals. It was not in 1979. It was not in 1977. The first junior nationals were in 1974, and it was won by Clefman and Scott, I believe, from Minnesota. That year there were no junior worlds. Now the next year, in 75, there were junior worlds. So if we go back and look at the record books, 74 was the first year of the junior men's nationals.
So after a little bit of discussion from the hack, it looks like Meyers will stick with his hit on this stone on the right side of the house and try to roll in to be shot stone. And they are pounding this stone, trying to make sure they even get a piece of it. And they will get the single, but roll out. So Tony Wright will have a draw to the empty house for his deuce. And we will finally see some points on the board here in the 4th end. So a couple quick score updates on sheet 1. Colorado leads North Dakota 2-1 in the 4th end. On sheet 3, as we mentioned, Stubbe leads 2-1 over Michigan. And on sheet 4, Dropkin leads 2-1 over Team Alaska in the 4th end. So the sweepers don't seem to want to have anything to do with this draw from Tony Wright. And Kyle Kackler will do his best to get it out. And he does. So that is only a single point for the Wright team, and that's a tough miss. So after 4 ends now, Minnesota 2 leads Minnesota 1 by a score of 1-0.
So the stat that I mentioned earlier about the team who scores first will win 66% of the time. By the way, this is not my thinking. These are just running the numbers. But a team that scores first with more than 1 point, the number jumps to 84%.
So we're now once again going to pop over to sheet 3, the Wisconsin-Michigan game. The Michigan skip, Pedersen, is throwing his first skip stone. They do have, his first skip stone without hammer. And he is throwing a hit and stick. It's tough to tell from here, but it looks like yellow is sitting 2. And over on sheet 4, Corey Dropkin makes a hit for his deuce and now leads over Alaska 4-1. And a flash from Pedersen here. So Stubbe has a chance to set up himself lying 3. So it looks like Stubby's shot call is a freeze on his own stone on the side of the 8-foot. On our feature sheet, back on, just an update on sheet 2, with the first stone of the end, the Wright team accidentally put up a corner guard. Meyers came around it, and then Wright took it out, and it looks like it just got out, but it still is in play, not biting the house. Stubby's freeze comes a little bit deep and does tap his own stone, but I think he is lying 3, possibly 4. Looking at the overhead, it does look like it's 4 yellow counters. And the Michigan team has just called a timeout. So we're going to switch back over to our feature sheet, where Jesse Yager will be throwing a come around a corner guard.
Now let's talk quickly on the timeout procedure. At Broomstones, like you said, we've got 2 main viewing levels, and some of the coaches are up on the 2nd level. So as soon as somebody calls timeout, the clocks are stopped immediately, and the coach will have 30 seconds to get to their team on the home end and a minute to get to the team on the away end. And then once the coach reaches the team to consult, their game clock will start. So there are some coaches tonight sitting up on the 2nd level, and they have 30 seconds to get down and to start conferring with their team.
So I was mistaken on my call in the previous shot. Jesse was trying to put up a center guard, and he was successful. Now it looks like Trevor Host will throw the come around. And it ends up right on the button, which I think is a little bit deeper than he wanted, but a good shot nonetheless. Okay, the timeout is over, so we will switch back over to sheet 3 for Pettersson's final stone. Stubby does have hammer in the end, so Pettersson is looking to try to find a way out of trouble with yellow sitting 4 here. Graylin, what would you call in this situation?
You know, these shots are tough because we don't know what the skip is thinking, but he's down on the board. He likes to remove rocks. So he makes a decent shot on this, leaving himself wide open. But, there's a lot of thinking that says, let's throw some kind of really aggressive come around or freeze. In that case, he didn't have anything to freeze to unless he froze on top of a rock, and not much to come around. Now, keep in mind, with the ice the way it's curling, you can bury a rock or partially bury a rock around another rock in the 8-foot or 12-foot. So it's not inconceivable to try to come around one of those rocks in the house.
So here, Stubby will be throwing a hit and stick for a 4-point end. So just an update on our feature sheet. Will Howison is throwing a come around the center guard. There's a Meyers stone in the back 8-foot behind the center guard. Nice shot by Stubby, and it looks like they will get their 4. So we will now switch back to sheet 2. Nice shot by Will Howison. It does overcurl slightly, but not with the two guards on that side. It shouldn't matter. And Ethan Meyers will call for Kyle Cackle to throw a peel.
So all it took was somebody to post something on the scoreboard to shift the type of game we're seeing into a more aggressive play.
Yeah, certainly a different end than any of the first four. Nice peel by Kyle. And we'll see if Tony Wright decides to put the guard back. With Will Howison's second shot, they are playing the guard, but it looks like it might be over curling. They're just hoping it stops here in front of their stone. And it does curl too far. It's still covering about a quarter of the stone on the forefoot, but it's the wrong quarter, and Meyers will have a hit and roll to sit two here.
Yeah, guards on this swingy ice is not an automatic, especially with a light handle when they start to move sideways at the end.
Cackle's stone is hanging out a bit. It does look like he'll get a piece, but may roll out. He rolls out and actually jams on the red stone just out of the house, and the yellow will remain biting in the back 12. It's an unfortunate result there. Tony Wright will call a hit to sit two. Another score update on sheet 1. North Dakota took 3 in the fourth end to take a lead over Colorado 4-2. Wright stone is on its way. He gets the hit and roll behind the corner guards. I think he wanted to roll the other way there. This will be Ethan Meyers' first stone with hammer, and he will now use that stone in the back 8 as backing.
Yeah, by rolling underneath the corner guards, it forces Meyers, or it doesn't force him, allows Meyers to throw an aggressive shot behind them. So this is not exactly what Tony had in mind, and we'll see if Ethan can put one up here on maybe the top 4, top 8, so that Tony won't be able to draw down to it.
So Meyers comes out with his draw. Looks pretty good. It looks like they're trying to make sure it's in the forefoot. He needs just to be biting the forefoot for shot stone. And they're really trying to drag this into the house. And it does come up just light. So Wright is still sitting number 1 in the back of the house, and he has a decision to make whether he wants to guard here or possibly put another counter in.
Well, he's looking at the takeout. Again, it's barely wide open, but the way things curl here, he can easily get by the corner guard, so we can get a little bit of an inside roll or an inside flop.
Even a nose hit here is pretty good. Makes the draw even tougher for Ethan Meyers. He just needs to make sure he doesn't jam.
And it looks like Tony's discussing with his front end about the risk reward on this shot. He's got to play it tight to the corner guard if he doesn't want to jam the back ones.
If he jams, he could set up 2. If he crashes the corner guard, he could possibly open up the stone in the back 8 foot and set up 2 that way. So there's a couple different ways he could miss this that could leave Meyers with a shot for 2. If he makes the nose hit, he's in a great spot to force Meyers to 1. It does look like this is hanging way out there. And he gets a piece of it and hits it over the top. So not the way he was trying to make it, but it's good enough, and Meyers will be forced to draw for 1.
Yeah, Alex, he may have had that in the back of his mind about that jam there. And I've done this myself, where you come out of the hack and say, the last thing I want to do is stack that up.
So Ethan now has all of the 4 foot to draw to. Possibly has backing, but not with this ice. He's just throwing the cold draw to the 4 foot. Ross and Host are staying close to it, but I think looks like it has pretty good weight. And Will Howison will try to sweep it back. And it will just stop, and Meyers will take his 1. So now we have a tie game through 5 ends. Meyers 1, Wright 1.
Well, we have a nice tight match. It looks like it's by design. Like we said earlier, neither team wanted to really mix it up, and we may see something a little bit different in the second half of this game.
So now for the 5th end, just before the 5th end break, we're going to once again thank our sponsors. We have 3 gold sponsors for this week: Dunkin' Donuts of Lexington, Whole Foods of Wayland, and Brooms Up Curling Supplies. And we're now looking at the camera for sheet 3, and there are 5 stones remaining. This is the final 3rd stone for the Michigan team.
Still on. Where are we now? Oh, he just took a break. I'll take over. We've got just the Skips Rocks remaining in the Pedersen-Stubbe game. Stubbe looks like he's going to throw some muscle and try to clear things up here with a couple of his opponent's rocks locked into the 4 foot. moved a few rocks. Again, did not get the result he was looking for. Those two Pedersen rocks are still in a pretty good spot there with no real way to get them. Maybe a rock fits through that port and drives the yellow and the 12-foot back onto them, but he's going to try to prevent that with his guard. They did not post the score of the Flippo Dropkin game. After 4, that score is 4-1 Dropkin. We don't know the results of the 5th end, but they are on break. Block that apparent port. Well, he gets it close to where he wanted it. And I think with the positioning of that rock is a very difficult run back. And Stubbe knows it. So he's opted to throw the draw between the large port on the other side. Once again, with the curl of the ice here at Broomstones, he won't have any problem getting to the button through that hole. Well, you saw another example of a light rotation, a light handle, and the rock seems to be on line the whole way, and when it starts to break, it just literally moves sideways. And a lot of these kids are not used to seeing that type of curl profile. And he wrecks the guard, looks like a little light also.
So Graylin, is this a draw for 3 here for Pedersen?
I believe it is a draw for 3 with the hammer.
Great shot there by Michigan, and they take 3. The score after 5 on sheet 3 is now Wisconsin 6, Michigan 4. So we're going to return back to our feature sheet on sheet 2.
Alex Team Pedersen gets a big hand from the crowd here at Broomstones. All you need to do is wear a bow tie, and you can win over the crowd.
So the second shot, Cameron Ross is trying to freeze to the right stone on the forefoot and makes a beautiful shot.
And just as we thought, the game's on here in the 6th.
Nice pair there by Cameron. Center guard and the freeze. As Graylin said, game on. Another score update on sheet 4. Flippo took 1 in the 5th, and Dropkin now leads 4-2. And on sheet 1, the North Dakota rink stole 2 against Colorado and leads that game 6-2. Wright tries to freeze right on top of Cameron Stone, and it comes up a little bit light, but it's still in a pretty good spot.
What we're seeing here, Alex, is a classic sequence of shots behind the corner guard, where somebody lays a guard up in the center, draw behind, draw on top, draw on top, draw on top. You see this a lot, you know, at the highest level.
And Trevor Host will put another one right on the pile. Looks like this stone is hanging out a little bit, and we'll bump the red stone in between the two yellows.
And when you're playing this sequence, excuse me, Alex, when you're playing this sequence, this is the last thing you want is to come in and what we call bounce one, and that's come into the pile, bounce one, spill one off, and as you can see, you know, leaving Tony Wright a potential double and sitting 2 rocks behind cover.
Yeah, that's certainly not where the Meyers team wanted to leave that stone. Jesse Yager here trying to throw a potential double. Makes it nicely. Tony Wright trying to get the redstone all the way out. It just stops in the back 12, but still a beautiful shot there.
So during the second half of the game, let's take an opportunity to take a look at some of the deliveries and some of the delivery mechanics from these two teams. Most curlers know that the thrower needs to do 2 things. You need to throw the rock on the proper line with the proper weight. So sure, it seems like 2 easy concepts, but all of the delivery mechanics are built around achieving those 2 things.
For Host here, his stone hangs out a little bit again, and Wright will have a hit and roll to lie 3. How was that slide?
Well, who was that? Yeah, the next time he throws, we'll take a closer look at what he's doing. The reason I mentioned about the line and the weight is because, you know, there's 2 really essential things in the delivery. There's the ability to throw the rock on line, which is really based on how balanced your delivery is.
Hit and a roll, doesn't quite roll far enough, and I think Meyers can see 3/4, maybe a little bit more of that stone. And he will try to throw some sort of a double here. Try to bail out, get out of some of the trouble that they're in.
So most people will agree that balance is a key part of the delivery. The other thing that's more controversial is how you determine draw weight. And what I'm referring to is the tempo or the rhythm and the timing of the delivery.
Kyle Kakala's shot jams and leaves Wright still sitting 2 behind the cover.
So when we break down these deliveries, we're going to talk about those 2 things, balance and tempo, and tell you where a lot of these junior curlers are in their development with their deliveries. Some are focused on their deliveries and working actively with coaches. Others are not. Some of the kids are, you get what you get, and what I've always said on our performance model is that you hope for performance. You know, the other competitive model is you build performance and work on your deliveries and work on sound mechanics. So Most of the kids out here have fairly balanced deliveries. Not all, but most of them.
Will Howison's shot here, trying to bury another stone behind the center guard. They clear the guard, and it looks like they're going to bump off the stone in the top 12 a little bit. They leave about half a stone for the Meyers rink to see, and it looks like Kyle Cackle will be trying to throw another attempt at a double.
We can take a look at Kyle Cackle's delivery now. He slides with a toe tuck. Of course, he throws the rock just like his father. So if you know his father, you know he throws the same way. Broom on the ice, body up on the toe, low, the classic toe tuck delivery.
Close. It hangs out a bit and doesn't get the double, but it does roll one of the yellows out into the open.
We don't see too many toe tuck deliveries. And I'm not suggesting something is right or wrong. And what we're going to do here when we break down the deliveries is take a look at what they're doing. And I encourage the viewers to look at the players and you decide how balanced are these people coming out of the hack.
Will Howison here with his final stone of this sixth end. Looks a little bit light, and the sweepers are really trying to drag it into the house. And they do get a biter. But the stone on the 4-foot is open, and it looks like Meyers will try the hit and roll behind the red guard and the two yellow stones in the house.
I'll mention before Ethan throws his rock, the second component, which is tempo in the delivery. Tempo helps calibrate draw weight, and particularly when the pressure's on and you're not thinking about your mechanics of your delivery. The rhythm and tempo in your delivery, particularly on the drawback, helps you calibrate draw weight and helps you be consistent with the draw weight. So Ethan has a classic delivery. He's got a balanced, flat-footed delivery with rhythm and tempo at the beginning parts, and you can see it as he throws here.
Meyers' stone is on its way, again trying to throw the hit and roll. But this one looks like it's hanging there. Makes the hit, but rolls to the side of the 12-foot. He lies second shot, and looks like Wright will be going for the hit and stick to again lie 3. After all the talk about the curl, it looks like we've seen more misses on the wide side than we would expect. It does seem maybe a touch straighter than we've seen in previous games.
It is straighter, and let's talk about what's causing that. And what I'm getting to is the weather here in Boston. We've had a cold stretch, and let's take a look at Tony Wright's shot here. So he doesn't want to flop inside and leave Meyers hit and roll. So he's trying to either nose hit this or maybe roll even a little bit outside.
And he gets the nose hit, sits right where he wanted to. And now it's a decision for Meyers how to try to cut down a big end for Tony Wright.
And this really puts Ethan in a tough spot. So it appears that the ice is straightening out a little bit, so we don't have that big finish at the end, which would have helped him to try to draw around that rock in the 4-footer or one in the 12. So he's going to opt to throw the hit and roll.
It does seem like both teams are struggling a little bit with the straightening. They're not expecting it to be a little bit different than what they were used to in the first few games.
And as soon as Ethan throws his shot, I'll tell you what's going on here with our ice shed and the weather and how we control the climate in here, which is definitely affecting the rocks tonight.
The shot is away from Ethan Meyers, again trying to roll behind cover. Just rolls only about a foot. It is second shot, but Tony Wright just has to throw another nose hit, and he will take his 3. And in a game like this, where it's 1-1 after 5 ends, a 3 is really big for Team Wright.
He does have the ability to blow the game open here. Tony Wright with a classic toe tuck delivery.
And he nails the hit and stick and takes 3. So now after 6 ends, Tony Wright, Minnesota 2, leads 4-1.
Well, while we're on a quick break, let me just tell you about what's going on with the ice. And not everybody's going to know what's happening here. I'm very familiar with this. I'm a Broomstones member. You know, the Boston average temperature in January is about 34 degrees. So it's not a cold city in the winter. Yet we've had a cold stretch of about anywhere from 5 degrees to 15 degrees for the last 2 weeks. And with the cold air comes dry air, and which is the ice maker's dream, particularly in our latitudes. So the ice has been very clean, you know, lots of curl. But today we're looking, or tomorrow morning we're looking at almost 60 degrees in Boston. So 60 degrees and rain is going to put moisture in our building. And even though we have dehumidification, it's not enough to pull out that type of moisture in January. So what's going to happen is that moisture that comes into our building, eventually that moisture settles on the ice and acts as a lubricant underneath the rock, preventing the rock from biting, which is necessary for curling. So with a little extra lubrication under the rock, you'll see the rocks run a lot straighter.
So we see from the chat some people are having a little bit of trouble with the feed. On our end, we're seeing everything working, and we're feeding the stream back to ourselves, and it's working here. So I would recommend refreshing your browser or possibly trying a different browser. I know some people were having better success with Firefox than with some other web browsers. So the first stone for Minnesota 2 goes deep and ends up just biting the back of the house. And Cameron Ross will attempt a corner guard. After giving up the 3, the Meyers rink does need to continue to try to put the pressure on it and get some points here to get back in this game. 3 is by no means insurmountable, but in such a close game, it can be tough to generate offense.
Tony's calling a classic up 3 points type of game, where his first call was on the top of the 4-foot. It did slip deep. Of course, the other team will put up a corner guard, and his response will be another rock to the top 4.
So score update on sheet 4. Corey Dropkin takes 2 in the 6th end and now leads Team Alaska 6-2.
Cameron Ross does have a classic balanced, flat-footed delivery, although he doesn't appear to be overly stable. And now that's not necessarily a problem as long as he's not leaning, one way or the other. So if he's on the top and even a little unstable, as you can see, it probably means his foot is in a pretty good spot underneath his body. At least it's in the correct spot.
So Jesse Yager will throw the peel here. And now they have control of the end, and Meyers has to sort of reset and try to generate offense again. He calls the shot to the top of the floor. So one note, Cameron Ross originally grew up playing at the Plainfield Curling Club, but now goes to college in Boston and plays out of Broomstones. He was the 5th on the national championship Dropkin rink last year.
Cameron's goal is to graduate college and move to Hollywood and make movies. So he's about a year away from that. Moving to LA is not going to really help his curling career.
Over on sheet 3, Michigan lies 1 in the forefoot and is trying to throw a guard on their final stone. Ends up in the top 12 in front of their counter. And Stubbe has a couple choices here on his final stone. Jesse Yager throwing another peel after the Meyers stone came up a little bit light. And he will hang out and chip out his own stone.
Of course, we don't know what Meyers is thinking here, but if he can get 2 points, even if it's a skip's deuce with his last 2 rocks, he's back in the game. So even though it looks like a big gap on the scoreboard, he really needs to take 2. Now, of course, he's looking for 3 or 4, but it's going to be tough with Tony Wright peeling rocks. So if he can get a deuce, he's right back in the game.
Definitely. Over on sheet 3, Stubbe's final stone, he was attempting a double for 1. He just got 1 of the stones and gave up a steal of 1 for the Michigan rink. So the score now on sheet 3 is Wisconsin 6, Michigan 5. On sheet 1, the Kramer team made a beautiful double to take their 3 in the 6th end. It brings that game to also a score of 6-5. North Dakota with the lead. Howison throwing the double, and he nails it. Gets a nice roll over to the side. It still is a corner guard that Meyers could use. So Meyers does call the come around from Kyle Kakala, looking to try to put it in the 12-foot over here on the side. Kakala wears number 11.
He's called the number 11 player.
Nice shot, finishes nicely behind the guard. The Wright team can probably see a little less than half of the stone. Nice shot by Howison. He does roll out, but it was a great shot to get that stone out of there. And Meyers will have Kakala put it right back.
Alex, did we ever get a response on my trivia question?
I think there were a couple answers. One was Don Barkham, but that was probably the only answer I saw in the chat.
Okay, so that's where the Don Barkham stuff was coming from. We have some question on how to pronounce Jaeger or Jaeger. We specifically asked him before the game how he pronounces his last name, and he said Jaeger. So if you pronounce it Jaeger, that's not how he says it.
So back to your trivia question.
Yeah, somebody mentioned Don Barkham. Well, Don Barkham debuted in 1976, so that would not be the correct answer. And we'll give everybody maybe another minute, and then I'll share with everybody that person's name.
So Kyle Kakala's stone, his second attempt to come around the guard, is left completely open, and Wright has another hit to lie 2. Nice shot. He rolls right to the forefoot. Couldn't have made that much better. So here's Meyers with the hit. I think he's going to try to roll this behind the corner guard. But again, looks like it is running straight. But he makes the double. So that actually may have been the intent with that shot. That brings the blank back into play.
In 2003, when we had the juniors here last, the weather pattern was exactly the same. Where the first half of the week it was cold and dry and the rocks were curling. And then this warm front came in, and now it's warm, moist, and the rocks are going to straighten out. The exact same thing.
Tony Wright with the hit and stick attempt. He makes it nicely, and it looks like Ethan Meyers will just try to peel this out, and we'll potentially have our 4th blank end of the game. Meyers' final stone ends up just nosing, and it will stick around, and they will take their 1. So after 7 ends, Minnesota 2 leads Minnesota 1, 4-2. Just a quick peek over it at sheet 4. Ryan Flippo has a draw against 3 for his single point. Looks a bit heavy, but they do have backing. And I believe he made it. Nice shot by Ryan. So while we have the break, I think the viewers and myself included would like the answer to the trivia question.
All right. It doesn't look like anybody's going to come up with the answer to this question. So the national, world, and Olympic level curler that made his Nationals debut at Broomstones in 1979 is none other than Tim Somerville.
Wow. That's
Right.
good trivia.
Tim Somerville also gave Don Barkham his only loss in 1979 in the Junior Nationals. But it didn't matter because Barkham only had one loss and there were no playoffs, so Barkham went on to the Worlds. He curled with his buddy Dewey Baisley, if anybody remembers that name.
So Meyers, after taking one, will have to continue on the aggressive here, and does have Cameron Ross put up the center guard. And the Wright team crashes the guard, but still leaves two guards, one just off center. Meyers, this does give Meyers a good chance to start setting up for a steal.
So now it looks like Meyers is going to be into the steal situation. So by not taking two in that last end, he really is forced to play a very aggressive steal game for the remainder of the game.
Cameron's come around attempt will crash, leaving a center guard. So not the worst result. And as Graylin said, we will see a very aggressive game from Meyers now, and we can probably expect Wright to do his best to keep it clean. So they considered trying to peel the guard, but instead Minnesota 2 goes with the draw and ticks off the Yellowstone over behind the Reds. And Meyers isn't worried about it and just is going to come around the guards.
So Meyers is in a sort of game on the line aggressive situation here. You know, it's late in the game, he's down two, doesn't have the hammer. So the most important thing to Meyers at this point is getting those first two free guard zone rocks short of the house, like he did. And if that's the case, then he'll always have something, unless Tony Wright can come up with some big muscle to clear up the front of that house, then he'll always have something to hide behind.
The stone from Trevor Host, the come around, doesn't quite bury, but gets a half bury, and it looks like Tony Wright is calling the freeze here. It's a little surprising given the way what we've talked about. We probably would have expected the peel.
And again, Alex, we don't know what's on Tony Wright's mind. And, you know, he sizes up his team and the opponent and comes up with certain shots. So
it was actually not a freeze; it was a tap back. Actually, a hack weight takeout. So that's a pretty nice shot.
But like you said, his option here is to try to clear. The only way Ethan Meyers can score points is by rocks in front of the house. So some traditional shot calling may peel those front guards. Again, we don't know what's on Tony's mind. That's why we can never really question his strategy.
Trevor Host here with a hit and roll attempt. Looks like this is going to overcurl. He will get the hit, but will also roll out into the open. And it is now second shot. And Wright again will play a more aggressive shot and draw into the house.
Well, his team just talked him out of it.
Oh, you're right. So
it looks like his team is happier playing with some more wide open shots instead of an aggressive shot. So he's happy to do what his team tells him to do in this case.
Oh, and another possible switch. They're going to switch back to the draw. little bit surprising, just with the amount of indecision, but it looks like the final call is the draw behind the center guard to try to sit two here.
Tony is communicating back and forth with the rest of his team and back and forth on the call.
The stone's away. Jesse got it. And this one's curling really hard, and he's going to crash on the center guard. Does open up the center a little bit, but still a lot of stones in front.
Ethan Meyers is looking at that wired red-red combination. It's not lined up right on it, but for those of you who are familiar with the throw or the drag, hitting that red-red combo on the outside could easily move that red rock in toward the center of the sheet and run that yellow out of the house.
It does look like he'll save that and elects to throw the come around. Although Kyle Kackela's stone looks a bit heavy. Tony Wright will bring it back, but it does stop in the back four.
And that's a great example of the rocks really not finishing as much as they used to. You know, this morning and last night, you know, that rock would have got another foot to the outside of the house.
So a score update on sheet 3. Stewie takes 6 with the hammer in the 7th end. And the score there is now Wisconsin 12, Michigan 5. Back on our featured sheet, the Wright team tried to throw a freeze to the stone that Kyle Kackela just put in the back four, and they overcurl and are a little bit light and end up leaving another guard. So Meyers looks like he wants to plug the hole. This end has gotten a little bit hairy for the Wright team.
And Tony's stuck with that aggressive play, and he must know his team and has a reason for playing the game like that. Now, they haven't executed, so his aggressive play, and if you miss the shots, then it really does put you in a jam.
So Kyle Kackela's attempt at the guard looks pretty good, although Meyers is giving them the option of putting in the top 12. It does look like it will stop as a long guard. Wright immediately looks at the tap back on his stone, his rightmost guard. But this end is very, very interesting for Wright and for Meyers. It looks like Wright has a chance here if he makes this tap to set up for one, but will have a hard time getting more than one, and possibly even give up a steal.
You know, Alex, there's some unwritten rules in curling, and some of you may know this, but one of them is you can't expect to steal without a rock in the forefoot. That doesn't mean you can't steal, it just means you can't expect to steal, which is exactly what Meyers did here. So once he got his rock into the forefoot, he was content with throwing the guards to protect it.
So the run back attempt ends up tapping one of the yellow stones to the side of the 8-foot. It does leave the red stone uncovered, but it looks like Meyers is going to leave the gap there and try to draw one to the top 4 behind the center guard. One other score update. On sheet 1, North Dakota, Team Hodek took 2 in the 7th and now leads Colorado 8-5 in the 8th end.
This is really an interesting shot here because at some point you have to decide, do you need to steal more than one? So what Ethan Meyers apparently is deciding is that now's the time where if he really is calling the shot into the top 4, that he's going to try to steal more than 1 point here. Now he doesn't need to because he can go steal for the win, but he likes his odds with putting a second rock in the 4-foot.
The shot is away and the line looks pretty good. Again, they look to be hoping to get a second counter. Ross and Host are really trying to bring this in and finish it behind the center guard. And they sweep it just far enough and get the second shot. And about a third of the stone is buried, which may be just enough to make the double pretty tough.
Yeah, I'm not sure the double's there, and Tony Wright just indicated that he wants the hit and flop. He was very decisive on where he wanted that broom, so he knows what he wants. Wants to get it fairly on the nose, maybe flop inside a little bit to prevent Ethan from putting another rock on the 4-foot.
Another shot he may have for his last stone is the hit and roll off the yellow on the side of the 12-foot. As sort of a last effort to get a stone into the 4-foot. His hit is wide and may even take the guard. Ooh, just clips the guard and ends up making the shot almost perfectly. Got a little bit lucky there, but I'm sure he'll take it.
He did. He got a little help from that top yellow.
Just a little kiss and redirects the stone into the red stone. But Meyers still has the port to the 4-foot, and he's going to try to put that stone back, get a second counter, and again try to possibly steal 2 here.
If he puts this on the top 4-foot, then Tony's going to have a difficult time getting shot rock.
The stone that Tony just threw rolled a little bit too far and took away any sort of tap back he could have had with that stone. And that, as Graylin said, will make it tough.
And it also allowed Ethan Meyers the way to get into the top 4.
The stone is away. The sweepers seem to think it's light. They're really going hard here. But it does have to curl. Counting. So Meyers is left sitting 1 in the back of the 4. Tony has a couple options at how to get there. But it's possible that if he gets rid of that red, he could get a couple in this end.
Once again, we're seeing that lack of finish on these rocks that we've seen all week. And they may not be adjusting enough to the conditions. Of course, they're not familiar with Broomstones. They don't know what goes on here. So that's a difficult thing for them.
So as was just updated in the chat, Dropkin took 1 in the 7th end on sheet 4 and now leads 7-3 over Team Alaska. So it looks like Tony Wright has decided to go with the in-off on the stone in the side of the 12-foot. This shot could be for 3 if he throws enough weight, but also may just be playing it for 1. But with peel weight, he could roll off of the yellow stone into the red and punch it out of the house, leaving himself sitting 3. 2 or 3. It's a little bit tough to tell. Great shot by Tony Wright. Beautiful double there. And it's 2 or 3 for the Wright team. Really nice shot there. And it looks like they've just decided on 3. And that makes the score after 8 ends 7-2 Wright. And that may put this game out of reach for the Meyers team.
So down 5 with 2 ends left. Ethan Meyers thinks he can have at it and have a chance to tie this game up.
And Tony Wright immediately will call for the throw through here. They have no need for any more points and just want to keep the house as open as possible.
Another one of those unwritten rules I was talking about is that if you don't think you can win the game, you should quit. Which means Ethan Meyers thinks he can win this game.
We saw a pretty improbable comeback on Sunday night. The Shelby Sweet team from Washington came back from down by 6 with it. They took one with hammer, stole 3, and then stole 2. To tie the game after 10 ends. Unfortunately, they did lose in the 11th, but you never really know.
And that's the thing. If you think you can win this game, then you go and play. Because stranger things have happened. Now, the higher level of play, the less likely it is that you're gonna come back in a situation like that. So these are, 2 of our top-rated teams in this event. So it's going to be an uphill battle for sure for Ethan Meyers. But he's out there, he's going to give it a go.
Cameron's first stone, he threw up a corner guard, and Wright immediately threw through. And now they're going to try to put up another guard. It was a great shot there by Tony Wright to get 3. As we were talking about, he played the end pretty aggressively, but playing like that, you can often set yourself up for a bigger end, and it paid off. On sheet 3, the Michigan team with their first skip stone is throwing a draw to sit 3. And they do make it, and it looks like the Stubbe rink will have a hit, potentially a double, but Pedersen will likely have a shot for 2 or 3 with his hammer. Over on sheet 4, the Dropkin rink has gone into complete peel mode against Alaska. They do have a 4-point lead, so that's not unexpected. Stubbe only takes out one red stone, so Pedersen with his hammer will have a hit and stick for 3. Back on our feature sheet, Jesse Yager's peel attempt noses and will stay in play as a guard. And with 2 guards, Meyers will go right in and hope to try to set up some points here. On sheet 1, Tim Hodek is throwing a draw to lie 2. Team Colorado does have hammer here, so they will have a shot to counter.
So over on sheet 3, Stubbe, who was up 7 points playing the 8th, just gave up 3. So all of a sudden, a blowout turns into a game that Pedersen thinks he can win.
Peel attempt by Howison here, and he does move the stone and rolls to be a corner guard, but does leave another guard. Meyers does have a stone in the back 8, but I'm sure he'll just go behind one of the corners. Kyle Kakala here with the draw to try to come around their own guard. And this stone looks like it's going to finish nicely right behind the corner guard. A little bit deep, but a nice shot by Kyle. Over on sheet 1, Colorado has a draw to the 4-foot to take their 1 in the 8th end.
Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot. You've curled in many junior nationals, you've curled in men's nationals, and you have pretty good judgment. So what do you think of the overall strength of field for this year's men's division on the junior nationals?
I think it's a little bit of a different field than I'm used to. There's a couple new regions. I think the last time I was at nationals, there were 3 regions with 2 teams each, which creates a very different feel. I think possibly this is a little bit of a younger nationals, not necessarily a weaker one, but maybe not quite as deep of a field. But it is still good to see some of these a wider base for the teams.
Well, that was a very neutral, politically correct answer. You think you'll be running for Congress next year?
I guess to sum it up a little bit, I do think a little bit weaker, but still a good field, and it should lead to a really great finish here. We've seen we've seen some upsets. The Meyers rink has 2 losses. The Dunham rink upset the high performance team. So it's turning out to be a fairly even field. A lot of losses being spread around. And the Tony Wright team has now called a timeout. And Tyler George accidentally walked out onto the ice, and he has to go back around. They're trying to keep the coaches off the ice.
Now there is a rule on that it says if the sheet of ice has a walkway next to it that you should stay on it. So what Tyler George did was not outside the rules. And depending on your chief umpire, and we have Herb Kupchak this week from the East Coast, it all depends on how they want you to enter the ice. Some officials will let you walk right down the center of the sheet. In this case, there's no walkways on either side, so he was within his rights to walk down the center, but apparently somebody told him not to do it, and he hustled off and went down the walkway.
So Tyler George is coaching the Wright team and is also coaching the Anderson team on the girls' side.
So apparently Herb Kupchak, the chief umpire here, did tell the coaches that did not want them running down the center of the sheet. So now we know why Tyler hustled himself off the ice and got onto the walkways.
It's good to see Herb back at Broomstones. He was a member at Broomstones for many years, and this past year moved down to the Philadelphia area, and now curls out of the Philly club. He was a great member of Broomstones and really spent a lot of time at the club and volunteering, and has also been an official for many years.
Herb's a great choice for chief umpire. He's been doing this a long time, and he's a great volunteer, so we're glad to have him.
So after the timeout, Tony Wright decides to throw a peel, and again it does stick around in play. So the Meyers team, it looks like sitting one with another stone on the side of the 12-foot. But there are still 2 skip stones left, so they have a choice whether or not they want to hit the yellow or possibly draw around the 2 corner guards.
It all depends here on when he wants to put the pressure on Tony Wright. If he wants to put it on early, he hits and sits 3 with Tony's skips rocks coming up. If he wants to wait a little bit, he could still draw behind, put one in the top 4, even though he'll only be sitting 1 maybe 2, and put the pressure on him on his last shot.
So this is Tony's last shot will be coming up after this. So if he hits, I think Tony will likely throw a hit on that side. If he decides to draw, I guess it brings the question whether Tony wants to draw and try to put in a second yellow, or maybe throw a hit just to make sure they don't give up a big end.
So maybe it's the type of pressure we're talking about. If Ethan Meyers can take this one out and force Tony to draw against 3, maybe he likes his odds on stealing. So he is down 5 points. So a steal of 1 here isn't going to help him a whole lot. So they're deciding, are they just going to go with a steal of 1, or are they going to try to go all out and try to steal 1, 2, maybe 3?
So the players here will all meet down in the house. They did just call a timeout. And they will await their coach, who has 60 seconds to make his way down to the far house.
So it still looks like they're talking about what type of pressure they want to put on Tony Wright.
Kevin Kakala is the coach for the Meyers rink, and he's met them down at the far end. A quick score update on sheet 4. The Flippo rink took 1 in the 9th, so going into the 10th, they are down by 3 against Dropkin.
So it looks like what Ethan's trying to do is force Tony Wright into throwing some kind of draw. If he takes the rock out, he takes the yellow rock out, maybe Tony Wright throws a hit or a double. He puts one behind the corner guard, the yellow corner guard, and maybe in the top four. Now Tony Wright may have to throw a draw to prevent a big end. So maybe he likes his odds with that over just playing hits.
Up 5, I might consider as Tony Wright, even if Meyers does make this shot, maybe just throwing the hit on the side red. Just giving up 3 here is an okay result. You still have hammer up 2, but that sort of comes down to how Wright feels about the game and how comfortable they are with their lead.
And in either case, Tony Wright does not lose control of this game.
Certainly not. So Meyers, first stone here. Trying to put it in the top 4 behind the guards. It's, again, hanging out there. And maybe even a little bit heavy. Stops on the button, but it's open, and Wright will go right for the hit on the stone that Meyers just threw. Definitely would have preferred to get that buried behind the guard to make Tony Wright's decision a little bit harder.
He does have a double across the house. In fact, he's got 2 doubles. And it looks like he's going to play the higher double. Will come off and hit that rock that's in the 12-foot.
Yep. Looks pretty close here. Another great shot by Tony Wright. Makes the double, and Ethan Meyers will just have the draw for 2. A couple of very nice final stones here by Tony Wright in the 8th and 9th ends. So we can't quite tell, but we do think that the red stone is counting. Because
well, it has to be very clear to him that the red stone is counting.
Because Meyers is throwing the draw. If yellow were the shot stone, I think that Meyers would be throwing the double here to make sure he got his 2. If you only get 1 here, it really puts you in a tough spot. And the sweepers are going to watch this as it goes deep, but it will stop in the 4-foot. Meyers takes his 2. So going into the final end here, Wright leads Meyers 7-4. Nice shot by Meyers there, but an even better shot by Wright. The double there forces just a deuce, and now Meyers has a 3-point deficit without hammer, which is very hard to come back from.
So Ethan is close on his shots. He missed that shot by a foot. If he were a foot farther buried, then maybe things look different. And Tony Wright's just taking care of things. He misses it by a foot, and it's a bang bang double, and Tony's taking care of business, and he's on fire.
So Meyers will have Cameron Ross throw the center guard. And he's going to have to set up a couple nice guards, but can't wait too long to go in the house because they do need 3. Over on sheet 3, Wisconsin took 2 in the 9th, and that game is over. So Wisconsin beats Michigan 14-8. On sheet 4, Thomas Howell just misses a double. With a 3-point lead, Dropkin has a 3-point lead and hammer, but Ryan Flippo does have a draw here to sit 3. Another good guard by Cameron. Flippo does make his shot to lie 3, and Corey will immediately have Thomas throw another double attempt. So another throw through by Wright. They're leaving the house open, and we'll set up, and we'll start peeling right as soon as they can. On sheet 1, Hodek sits 2 in the 4-foot, going into to Kramer, Team Colorado's final stone. And North Dakota does have hammer and a 4-point lead. Peel attempt gets rid of one of the red stones, but again leaves a yellow hanging around. The right team hasn't quite been sharp on some of these peels. They've left a lot of shooters.
And Meyers is in, like I said earlier, he's in a do or die situation here, and the most important thing in that case is to put your 2 rocks in the free guard zone up. So, which is exactly what Cameron Ross did.
So back on sheet 1, Kramer makes a nice angle run back. It's tough to tell from here if he was able to get his 1 or possibly gave up 1 in the ninth end. And the shot here for Trevor Host goes a little bit deep. And now Wright has several options to make a double. So it was 1 yellow for North Dakota, so going into the 10th end, North Dakota leads Colorado 10-5. On sheet 4, it looks like Ryan Flippo is trying an improbable split attempt, but he does need 3 and has to get both stones into the house and out counting a stone in the 12-foot. Ooh. Here on sheet 2, the double attempt just jams and still leaves a center guard. And it will be game over on sheet 4. Dropkin defeats Flippo 7-4. So Kyle Kakula here, throwing, I believe, a come around.
I think he's trying to tap up or maybe even put a rock short.
I think you are right. It does look like they're leaving it as a guard. And Wright will be going for another peel attempt. We'll see. Again, back-to-back peels. They left stones in play, and even though it's still a big deficit for Meyers, they're setting up an end where they have a chance.
Yeah, and this is not exactly what Tony Wright had in mind for the 10th end up 3.
This may be why in the 8th he played that more aggressive game, because he knows that's what his team is good at, and it did pay off. So Howison makes the straight peel, and Will Meyers and we are now on Kyle Kakula's final stone. And they're going to put up another guard.
Well, it looks like Ethan Meyers is happy to wait a few shots.
He does have 2 in the house already, and 2 stones remaining after this. So he does have a little bit of time before he has to have 3 counting.
What he can't predict is when Tony Wright is going to come into the house.
Right.
So as he continues to throw center guards, Tony continues to peel them. So at some point, Tony, unless he clears a lot of rocks, will have to come into the house.
He will maybe potentially have a shot on one of the stones in the house, but Meyers does have a fairly good setup. Another good peel by Howison, and Meyers now is down to 2 stones left with 2 stones in the house. And it looks like Ethan and Kyle are talking about coming into the house, just trying to figure out where a good place to put it would be. Over on sheet 1, the Hodek team is just looking to run Colorado out of stones. Every stone that Colorado puts in play, they immediately peel right out. And it looks like Meyers has chosen to come around this left side here.
And they keep creeping that broom closer and closer to the button. Yeah. I think they're starting to realize that it doesn't have quite the finish it used to have.
They were discussing the draw on the other side, but they're sticking with this left side. Shot is away here from Meyers. Looks heavy. Unfortunately, Tony Wright will bring this right through and just has to remove 1 stone here to finish this game. Final stone here for Tony Wright. Trying to take out the stone. He has about half of it. And he will get rid of one red and game over. And Wright defeats Meyers 7-4 here. And that's a big win for Wright. A little bit of an upset. Minnesota 2 beating Minnesota 1, and that's the third loss here for Meyers.
And Tony Wright, came out of the blocks a little slow, and I think he lost his first 2 games, and has been on a much better win-loss record since then.
Yep. So that puts Wright at 4-2 and Meyers at 3-3.
So that was a pivotal game when it comes to these 2 matchups.
And there, as we mentioned earlier, there have been a lot of losses being spread around right now. So it could take. There could be a logjam for that final playoff spot. So this could prove to be a big game later in the week. So now we're gonna try to maybe switch over to sheet. Maybe switch over to sheet 4, or we'll commentate from here. Sheet 1. Hodak has a 5-rock lead, and Kramer really only has 1 stone remaining. So this, unfortunately, we don't have the camera there, but this will be the final. If Hodak makes the takeout, this will be the final stone in the game. Oh, so it looks like some of the stones were miscounted, and this is game over. So North Dakota defeats Colorado 10-5, and I think that's just about it here from Broomstones Curling Club. I'd like to thank our sponsors one more time. We have three great gold sponsors this week: Dunkin' Donuts of Lexington, Whole Foods of Wayland, and Brooms Up Curling Supplies. And also thank my partner here, Graylin Cousins. It was a lot of fun bringing this game. Some great shots by Tony Wright, and a really solid win for Minnesota 2 over Minnesota 1.
Yep. Thanks, Alice. Nice job, and we'll see everybody in the morning, maybe.
Yep. We will have four more games for you tomorrow. So keep watching.
All right. Good night, everybody.